Test, turn on broadcast feed. Test. Turning off control monitors. Test, turning on. Ba.
I won't be able to prove it right now, but I would just go ahead and... Like the elm trees and stuff, the statue for this. Well, no, the city over to city.
Hey, excuse me. Could you guys take the conversation outside? Thank you. We're waiting. 5, 4, 2, 1. Okay, I'm going to call the November 19th, 2024 meeting of the White Bear Lake Conservation District to order. We have a quorum, thank you. And we have an agenda in front of us. Would anybody like to make adjustments to the agenda? Chris.
I have a question, and I don't have to add it. I more want guidance from you. I know we're going to talk about an ordinance, and there's some things came up in the LUC to talk about reviewing ordinances. Is this the right thing, or should we take it offline until later to see like some of the things we discussed, or should I just bring that up in the LUC?
And is that related to the dog beat?
Yeah, I can use it on that, pull it, I guess. Do that.
Yeah.
All
right. Would anybody like to make a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the October 15th, 2024 meeting minutes. Does anybody have any adjustments that they would like to suggest for those minutes? Would anybody like to make a motion to approve those minutes?
For the minutes.
We have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. All right. Public comments. So at each of our meetings, we reserve 15 minutes for the public to comment on items that are not on the agenda. Would anybody like to take advantage of that 15 minutes? Okay, we'll move on. New business. The first item is an amendment to our Ordinance 6. And let me just get it up here. And just as background on this, the current ordinance allows people to take water out of the lake when the lake level is above 923.5. And the change to the ordinance would be to eliminate the taking of water from White Bear Lake. So tonight is just a first reading, and we'll have a public hearing at the January meeting, and then after the public hearing, the board will vote on the change to the ordinance. So I will read please. Thank you, Alan.
Chair, just to kind of help things along, this is what we call the first reading of the ordinance. And so the next reading will be the second and final. It'll take into account any changes that come in certainly tonight and over the course of the next 2 months. And then at the final reading and public hearing, you might hear something that you would want to add into it. And so then you can amend it at that time and pass it finally, or if it's substantive and you need more time, you can then just wait until the February meeting and take into account the comments. But following that second reading, assuming that it gets approved, then staff would publish it and it would become an ordinance.
Okay.
Enforceable. Well, I should say it'd become an amended ordinance that would then be enforceable.
Okay, and should I read this?
It's in the packet. It's not very long. You're certainly welcome to read it into the record, but it's in the public packet.
Okay. You know what I am going to do is there's two sections in this ordinance that are being adjusted, and so I will just read those, and then I'll mention the difference between those two, just in case people are watching and they don't have access to the thing. So ordinance number 6 is an ordinance regulating the appropriation and use of water from White Bear Lake, and Section 1 of that reads, appropriation of water prohibited. No person may pump or otherwise appropriate water from White Bear Lake at any time when the lake level is below an elevation of 923.5 feet above mean sea level. And what would be struck from this ordinance is that last part, when the lake level is below an elevation of 923.5 feet above mean sea level. So that Section 1 would then read, appropriation of water prohibited. No person may pump or otherwise appropriate water from White Bear Lake at any time. Section 3, I'll read it as it exists now. Criminal penalties. A violation of this ordinance is a petty misdemeanor. A second violation is deemed to be committed each day and is charged as a separate incident that the conduct is observed that occurs in the same calendar year is a misdemeanor. And this section would be changed to read, a violation of this ordinance is a misdemeanor. A violation is deemed to be committed each day and is charged as a separate incident that the conduct is observed. So that's the change to the ordinance. And do we have discussion?
Well, you've now read it, and so you haven't asked for a passing of the first reading, so that would be your first and second vote.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve the first reading.
Yeah.
We have a motion and a second to approve the first reading. Any discussion? Scott?
What's the impetus? Did something happen that we're considering making this change?
I think that what initiated it was we got a request from a landscaper asking if they could connect someone's irrigation system to the lake, and so that kind of initiated some conversation at the executive committee level. And I think there's a couple of things. One is that we don't really have a good way to enforce this provision when the lake is below 923.5, and so there's some interest in just eliminating the taking of water from White Bear Lake. The second thing is that everybody on the lake, I'm sure, has access to potable water, and so they have access to a water source to irrigate, so it's no longer necessary for people to take water out of the lake to irrigate. To use that, and so I think those are the driving force. And am I missing anything? All right, so I think that's what's pushing it.
I have a question, Brian.
Yes.
My grandchildren go and play on the sand all the time, and they're forever taking buckets of water out of the lake. Misdemeanor?
Maybe. No. No, I think,
That just seems ridiculous. I mean, it seems that we long ago took our pump out and stopped pumping water out of the lake. However, I use water to water my garden just by the bucket full, not by taking it out by a pump. But my grandchildren, they make all sorts of moats and all sorts of stuff, and they're using gallons of water.
yeah, and I think the
And
difference.
then under this provision, that could be a misdemeanor.
Yeah, I think the difference is that, that water that they take out in a bucket and they pour onto the beach is ending up back in the lake.
True.
And
Well, any water that's close to the lake that's being used is also going to return to the lake.
yeah, except when you use the water for irrigation, then you're going to transpire some of that up into the air through the plants that are growing with the water, and so that water doesn't make its way back into the lake.
So should we be putting a phrase in there regarding irrigation is not legal, not
I think you have
acceptable?
pumping- oh, sorry.
Well, the pumping was in there, and I understand that, but taking an occasional bucket of water out for a plant that sits near the water, this could also be a misdemeanor.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of landowners on the lake would be guilty then.
Of pumping water from the lake.
No, taking water from the lake.
Yeah, so this may pump, or I guess it does say, or otherwise appropriate water from White Bear Lake at
Yes.
any time. Yeah, I think that.
I think that's kind of a slippery slope.
Okay. Chris?
Oh, maybe then you just put it under 5 gallons or something, just like, I don't know, then if you to address hers, I guess.
Mike?
I think it's fine the way it is, and it's just subject to a little bit of interpretation. I think you've taken it to the extreme. We're talking about somebody putting in an irrigation system.
Well, I
using it
understand
all
that.
year long. You're talking about something that you
Yeah.
normally wouldn't even think
A little bit as we move forward, and if we just add something about mechanical extraction from the lake instead of
That would be great.
the
Yeah.
bucket brigade, something like that.
Yeah.
Of course, this is why we're having this discussion at the board level. So
Yeah, this
I don't think it's intended to go after incidental, use for a plant or something like that. It's really the mechanical pumping and appropriation,
Yeah,
surface water
I understand.
appropriation.
I understand that part of it, but that's not what this says in its entirety.
We're after the grandkids too.
Yeah. You're after my grandkids.
No, but that's why we're having this discussion, so that we
Okay.
can tweak things.
it's fine.
Yep. Yep. Anybody else? Mike?
One other comment. So this might, again, be taking it to the extreme, but in the preamble, we describe the, litigation and call out specifically surface water from White Bear Lake. And is that important to add that qualifier in the other parts of the ordinance as well, that we're talking about surface water? Because I know the litigation talked a lot about the surface water being in communication with the aquifer, and would anybody confuse the definition of water appropriated from White Bear Lake as water from the aquifer?
Right, like maybe put in a sand point or something well adjacent to it. So
Right.
maybe surface water
Yeah.
would clear that up.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Anybody else? And again, we will revisit I'm sorry.
Yeah, I
Oh,
could,
sorry.
just on behalf of some people I know who want to take water out of the lake because they actually don't have access to potable water because it's on the other side of the street. There's no water there. They'd have to run a hose across the street. And I'll just throw that out there because that would be their argument. Well, you can't say I have an alternative because I don't really.
Those people by,
Excuse me.
excuse me.
Okay, and they would be using it to irrigate their land
That strip on the other side of the street.
between the street and the lake?
Yeah,
Okay.
so,
Susie?
I was just pointing out that perhaps that land on the north end of 96, is that where you're thinking, where they're going to have water access as 96 goes through on the, what would
Not
that
a-
be?
yeah.
He's probably
The
in the
north.
South Shore.
Northwest end of it.
Or Lake Avenue.
yeah,
Yeah, or lake too.
yeah. My situation, or of this person I know, it would be South Shore Boulevard. So, you know, it only would affect a few houses,
Right.
but,
There's quite a few.
Okay, any
and I
other
don't know how you'd exclude that.
Well, I think that if they have an option of dragging a hose across the street, you know, that might be an option, right? I see people do that around Bald Eagle quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, I know another person down there who got a guaranteed hose where they would replace it if anything went wrong with that hose. So they ran it across the street, let cars run over it, and they returned it.
Yep, there are people like that.
Yeah.
Yep,
There are ways, I guess, around it.
yep. Okay, any further discussion on this item? Okay, we'll move on.
Did you take the vote?
Oh, sorry, yeah, we have a motion and a second.
Picky or anything, but. I think the vote's now. Right.
So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you.
They're not going to do anything.
And that's it for that. We don't have to do anything more tonight. eh?
It'll be back in January.
All right, thanks. The next item is VFW amended DNR permit comments. So the VFW has applied for a revised DNR permit, and the DNR is now requesting public comment on the revisions to the VFW application. And generally, the request by the VFW is to increase the number of slips, and I think we're all familiar with that through the EAW process that we went through. And the board would like to, and you have this in front of you, the executive committee would like to offer comments to the DNR on the VFW permit. And you have that in front of you. And basically, as you'll see, the comments are generally around the figure that was provided to the DNR as part of the application. The figure that was provided it has a dimension line of 300, and it also has a scale block. Based on the scale block, it doesn't agree with the 300-foot dimension line. So that's one thing. It also doesn't note the ordinary high water level. So there's no way to tell if they're within the 300 feet from the ordinary high water level. And so as you can see from the comments, we're basically asking the DNR to get a better figure, something that's more accurate. And I think generally speaking, the VFW layout would fit within these things, but it would be nice to have that formalized in the form of a diagram, and not just for the DNR, but it'd be good for the VFW to ensure that that they're confident in what they're after. So I would like to make a motion to allow Sherry to send these comments to the DNR.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the motion. No, we have a second, a motion and a second on the sending them, sending the comments. And so any discussion?
I think the good thing is I do not know who gave this diagram, but through all the years we've been working on this, they have diagrams of the new format where if they just follow what they've done in our permit for this year for their existing dock and do the modifications on it, I think they'll get it. I can even pass on some of that feedback. because I know, like, it's there. People just have to look, so I'm not sure, because like some of the numbers don't even add up.
Yep.
It says, yeah, they do.
Yep.
It's close. They just gotta go back to their old stuff.
Yep. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes. Next item on the agenda is the administrator salary. I would like to make a motion to increase the administrator salary from $26 an hour to $28 an hour. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Mike?
That starts January 1st.
Yeah, good, thank you. Yep. So this change, and I'll amend my motion to begin this increase as of January 1st. Is that good?
Good.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Well deserved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Sherry.
On to unfinished business, the Lakeview study. Meredith?
Okay, the study is running on time. Steve expects to report results to us at the January or February meeting. Does anyone have any questions about what's happening? Right now they're compiling. They've got the data from Ramsey County boat launches and from some other boat launches.
Have you seen any of it? Bits and
Yeah.
pieces, or no?
Not much.
Not much.
Not much. I saw what he presented at the last meeting. Any other questions or comments on the Lakeview study?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Meredith. Oh, I'm sorry.
We did get an invoice from Mr. McComas, which is on our December estimated treasurer's report, so that's partly paid.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we're on to reports and action items. The executive committee did meet. Just some highlights. Sherry is continuing to work on the Starry Stonewort response plan. And that, again, just to remind the board, if we do find Starry Stonewort, we'd like to be prepared with some action that we can jump on that quickly. There's a loss of funding. So basically, if I understand this right, the DNR was collecting a fee, and they were using it for the invasive species control. The Coast Guard determined that that fee was not legal, and so that impacts the funds that are available for the DNR to distribute for aquatic invasive species control. And Sherry's looking into that further, and so we'll have more on that at a future meeting.
I think you twisted those two around. I think the Coast Guard was collecting a fee and distributing it to the DNR.
Okay, perfect.
That was being earmarked as AIS enforcement and monitoring. And so the ask was, I believe, to support the idea of keeping that in place so that those monies can keep coming in.
Okay, so
If I
that's
recall
probably more
reading the
accurate.
press release right, but we're watching it, right? Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Sherry is continuing to work with Ramsey County on dredging activities, and basically that's just the board would like to know when those activities are going to occur and what they consist of, just so that we're in the loop on that. Alan is going to redo the training video to give us better, higher quality, since the first time around the technology wasn't working all that great. The VFW EAW, the final documents were sent out as necessary, and information was published in the October 29, 2024 EQB publication. We discussed the administrator salary. And then one other thing is there's this Lake Smart lake monitoring program, And Meredith is doing some work to investigate that, so we will have information for you on that at a future meeting. And that was it. Any questions on that stuff? Chris?
The dredging was for the launches, right?
Yeah.
Mainly just Ramsey County or what?
That's my understanding. Yeah. And I don't think any of us want to stand in the way of that.
No, I was just curious which ones they were doing, what.
Yeah, and see, and that's the question, right? Is that it'd be good for us to know wherever they're doing that activity. Okay, we'll move on to the Lake Quality Committee. Mike?
Lake quality, lake level today is 922.57. 922.57. It's virtually the same as last month. We had a little rain, that helped. Lake temperature is 44 degrees. Last month it was 55, but the interesting thing, 44 degrees. Last year at this time it was 42 degrees, and the lake didn't freeze till January.
Yeah.
The year before, in 2022, it was 33 degrees on this date. The year before that it was 40, then it was 38, 36, 36, 34, down to 2017. The lake froze early December all those years. Interesting to see what we have. Now we got some cold weather coming, but I'm thinking it's not going to freeze very early this year either, which means a shorter winter maybe. I could be wrong. Prove me wrong. I don't know. Just my. The other thing, the DNR Aquatic Invasive Species Grant application came out today, and we have till December 4th to get our application in. However, I sat down this morning and did the whole thing, and it's already been submitted. So we'll just wait for the results. That's it for me.
Okay, thanks, Mike, and thanks for the history on the lake temperature. Yeah, that's a deal. Any questions for Mike? On to the Lake Utilization Committee, and Mark is not here tonight, so Chris?
First one on the permit list is the permit for the Special Olympics and the Polar Plunge. That's January 25th. Everything looked good with their permit, and we did weigh the application fee for that. And so I'd like to approve the Special Olympics Polar Plunge for January 25th, 2025.
That's your motion.
Yep.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? Meredith?
No.
So they had options A and B for setup. Did they want our input on that, or? So if they wanted our
Yeah,
input
I
on
saw
that, I was
with
going to
with
say option B
loop.
may be better with the dumpster off the ice.
I didn't catch that, Meredith, to be honest. We can give that feedback.
I don't.
Where did you, was that in Plan B? Oh, dumpster off the,
They have a plan A and a plan B. I
yeah,
don't know if they
A
want
is on
us-
the shore still, though.
Yeah, B is on the shore and A is on the sand, or
Oh,
maybe
I'm
water.
calling
yeah.
them the same thing. So you want it off the shore, you're saying?
Less chance something would run out of the dumpster and go into
Got it.
the lake.
I thought you were
I don't know if
saying-
they even
thought
want
you
our
were saying
opinion
it
on
was-
that, but
I thought it was on the ice or something like that. That's what, I'm fine with that. We can give the feedback to say keep it off the shoreline in the sand. You know, so a little combination of A and B.
Yeah, B.
B. Plan B. Good catch.
So we have a motion and a second, but we haven't voted on that yet.
Should we revise that to say we'd approve it based on them using Plan B that's in their permit?
Or alternatively, keep the dumpster and the boneyard off of the beach area?
Sounds good to me.
Mike, is that okay with you, the second? Okay. So the motion would basically be approve with the condition that they keep the dumpster and the boneyard off of the beach area. Boneyard? Yeah, that's how it's labeled here.
That's what it says.
Yep. I guess they have bones. Okay, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes.
Next one on the list is for the Barely Open, and it's the event permit. the LUC reviewed and approved. We did waive the fee, the fundraiser, or we did waive the fee on that one also. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the Barely Open event permit for February 1st, 2025.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes.
The next one on the list was the White Bear Yacht Club. And Meredith's going to hate me. I don't have the number of boats and slips written down. I had it everywhere else. But their permit was identical to last year. But the only thing that was different in the sense of they had the fee wrong for the totals. So with our 125, I think they mixed it up, or there's something there we have to go invoice them the right way. But their overall permit was fine. Where
Just use the wrong numbers.
For their totals, yeah. And I don't know if they got the memo. It's on the document. I don't know how they missed it, but I don't know if they're just writing in the same number. So we approved it based on subsequent invoicing and having them pay their correct fee. So the LUC approved it. I would make a motion to approve it based on invoicing and White Bear Yacht Club paying the correct fee for their number of boats and slips.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? And I'll start. And would it be better just to table that one until they get it all finalized correctly, or what do people think about that?
Totally fine with it. I think the good thing is all the boats and everything are right, where if it's just a dollar thing, I'm fine with that too.
Okay, does anybody, Meredith?
I have a question. So to me, it looks like there's more lease slips on their diagram than they had in the.
Because that's even the
Got
pit.
two number nines.
No. Because I know that's my handwriting in there that they actually used, which is kind of funny. The numbers aren't, they're right, if you count them. It's the same exact picture.
And how many lease slips do you count on there then?
Well, there's two different ones.
And 22 non-commercial and 24 commercial plus 1.
So, and then that total comes down to 18 when you minus the 4 on it. And on the other one, for the skids and everything else, there's 24 and 1 skid for that ramp.
Is that actually 2 nines that they have? They have one on the left-hand side and one on the
Which one
right-hand
in
side?
that diagram?
Yeah. Like starting from the left, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and it looks like 9. And then starting, you get to the right-hand side, and it's 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
I don't think so. I think one of them is a sheriff boat too in there in the mix. So we'll shelve it anyways for the numbers, and I know I reconfirmed it. We have the previous last year's permit. We'll double check it.
Okay, so do you want to withdraw the motion?
I'll withdraw the motion on that one.
Withdraw a second.
Okay.
But there's 24 boats.
So it's just probably a matter of correcting the diagram to get rid of the duplicate nines?
Oh, okay. But if you count the
Or-
spaces, the
yeah.
spaces are right.
Yeah. And I don't know how they got this one. This was that's my handwriting there, which is kind of funny, those numbers. It was me counting them when I did it last year.
You came up with the 2 number nines?
I know there's a sheriff boat in there where I did not count it.
Yeah.
But I'll just re-review it. So I'll withdraw that, re-review it, double check it 100%. But I know it's there because it hasn't changed.
Okay.
Next one on the list, tallies. They didn't really revise anything. They just finally got the diagram to match what we approved last year when we removed three slips there. So we just matched up the diagram to their 58 and 6, which is a total of 64. And everything's identical to last year from a layout concern. It was just getting when we approved it last year, we did not have the 3 boats out of the picture. Now we have them out and they're X'd out. ADUA is defined, and the LUC reviewed and approved tallies for 2025. So I'd like to make a motion to approve tallies for 2025.
Second.
We have motion and a second to approve. Any discussion?
Oh, yeah, and one discussion note. Sherry and I screwed up on the definition of, we went back and forth on these slips, and like, we wanted municipal slips that we pull up. We did not get that in the permit for some reason. So when Tallies filled it out, their slips on their dock, we did not catch it, so we said, okay, this year it's on us, we're just gonna eat it. We'll go back and fix the permit to match our definition of slips, so it's like these municipal slips or slips on, because we had these discussions about pulling slips on docks, a boat's a boat in commercial bay, right? So we're still counting them, but the fee got mixed up in the permit where we'll catch that next time, but we screwed up on that one and we'll clean it up.
Okay. Mike?
Did you get any information on the transient slip rental that they were doing?
You know what, I didn't get a chance to ask it because we had some other discussions Connor is there. And maybe Connor, you can speak to this a little bit, like that transient area that you have, people could come, use it, get a beer, come to Tallies, right? I mean, that's the intent of it, that whole.
But on the website, it said that you rent them out.
Oh.
That's just an open slip for a weekly slip, but it's just, it's still counted as one of our.
So you can rent a transient slip for a week?
Just a week.
Is it it's in your 64?
It's in the 64.
Yeah.
Okay, if it's in the.
As long as it's in the 64, you're good.
It's in the 64.
Okay.
Meredith?
But the other side is just like hourly.
Yeah. Sorry, I thought you were talking about transient parking over on.
Well, that's what they called it on their website.
Yeah, I thought it was just the daily stuff you were asking. Go ahead.
But if it's in the count, it's good.
Okay.
Meredith?
Including some transient slips. People are requesting those. A lot of people want those. I'm wondering, in your transient slips, will you allow overnight parking?
Not overnight parking.
Okay. And what's the difference between the transient slips and your G1 to G3?
I have G1 to G3, I believe.
Are those gas?
Yes.
Those are.
Oh, yeah, those are gas slips.
Okay.
If there's three, yeah, that's just our front gas dock.
Okay.
And that's on where the hourly kind of fees come up. Nothing compared to the transient slips.
And those aren't in the 64.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes.
And one to note for all these permits, these do not include any, this is not the low water stuff. This is just assuming everything's the same, fit in the ADUA that we have. So we'll figure that out later. City of White Bear Lake, their municipal marina, we shelved that. There's some cleanup they need to do in their diagram. There's a few open slips that have boats in them. They're not numbered. We want to get some clarity on that where they're not at their what they say it's 160, but we want clarity on making sure what are these slips for. So hopefully if we get that in the next round, because the first round we had for feedback, it was like at 162. So we're making progress, but we'll clean up these last little ones that are there, and then I'm sure it will be ready for the next review. Go ahead.
May I ask a question on that one?
Yeah.
What is the $1,000 permanent dock checked for on that one?
It's taken off in the end.
No, I believe they looked at last year's application when they had the $1,000 for the permanent dock for the Veterans Pier. And when they redid the application for this year, they just looked at, they gave us $1,000 and didn't look to see what it was for.
We're not charging them for the Veterans Pier?
No, last year the board had voted to not give a permit unless they changed their pier. And also the $1,000 will be credited toward their unit fees.
Okay, so no motion on that?
No motion on that, just more in the diagram. You'll see there's a few boats that aren't numbered, and we got to make sure slip's a slip or a boat's a boat. What is it? What are they doing with it? The next one up was Mataska Park. Same as last year, 28 buoys, 29 slips, or 29 total boats on those slips. From what we saw, everything looked good, and the LUC approved, so I'll make a motion to pass Matoska Park for the buoys and slips. Or, yes, what are they called?
Moorings.
Well, there's moorings, and then we're calling them municipal skids.
There you go.
Municipal skids.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes.
The next one on the list, White Bear, City of White Bear, again, the dog beach fence. The LUC shelved this. We did not want to make a decision or approve it based on a couple things. One, it doesn't seem like the residents in the city are on the same page, and it sounds like there was a meeting tonight to work through that, so we'd like to get some of that input. I would also want to get some of the board's feedback and discussion on, from the packet, if you've read any of the materials there seems to be a concern about, the safety and the quality of the water, whether it's due to dog feces and all these other things. There's some ordinances that maybe touch on it, but I would want some feedback from the board to understand where we thought one step forward to figure out how to do this, or maybe look at it is, does the executive board take a look at this, or some kind of committee to say, do the ordinances fit? Is there something else we want to look at? But there's something there that needs a set of eyes on it, and I didn't know where to take it next out of the LUC. But it seems like we should have some kind of committee or something that needs to look at these ordinances and see if they apply, especially like what Mike had brought up in the LUC, where if somebody can prove that these ordinances are being impacted or not followed, okay, I would want to make sure that we feel that our ordinance is covered. If we do feel it's great. If not, then what do we do next?
So are you, would you like to have some discussion on that?
Yeah, I would. Some discussion. Just get some input from others, where would we take it next? Because it was a lengthy discussion. It went in positive direction, but then it kind of spun a little bit. But I do think we got to look at it a little deeper before we start making some decisions. Because my opinion, if people aren't getting along, just like we do with a lot of these other docks, like we always say, if you're not getting along with your neighbors and you're not making progress on fixing issues there, we're not going to approve your dock. And this is kind of another thing with this fence. We're not going to approve the fence until maybe some traction gets there or some discussion to figure out what we need to do next. But I think proactively from the board, I would like some discussion on maybe what could be looked at next from a different committee, or even the executive board, just like you guys looked at Ordinance 6. Does this feedback that we've gotten about all these complaints fit into any of the ordinances we have, and do we want to pursue something next?
Okay, well, we can have a little discussion about it, I guess. I guess I'll start. So just so you know, we typically don't take public comment. And I know this is an emotional issue, and I know that we get this. But, you've submitted a lot of information, and, so I think we can have some discussion about it. So I'll just start. I read through the information that was provided, and I understand it's a really emotional issue for the people that live in that area. Parking, which we have nothing to do with, dog feces along the trail, which we have nothing to do with. There's information from the city on, that folks have gone down and observed on various dates at various times, and most of that comes back positive, it seems to me. And then I think that this idea of, whether dogs should be allowed in the lake or not, I think that's kind of a slippery slope. I mean, I've seen people at Bel Air Beach throwing balls to a dog there. I've seen people have a dog on a boat that they let swim off the boat, and then the dog would come back to the boat. And then in the winter, I know there are lots of people that use the frozen ice to walk their dogs, and I've assisted with the lake cleanup a number of years, and there's always, dog feces there. So that's another thing I think about. And then The last thing I guess I think about is, the data that we have in front of us, the E. coli sampling. It looks like Memorial Beach is much worse, has much higher E. coli numbers than this area. And so, if it's E. coli that we're trying to prevent, it seems like, would we then be pushed to, close Memorial Beach or not allow kids into the water? So those are some things I'm thinking about. But I think, first and foremost, at least for this board, there's one issue, and that's, for us, that's a fence that extends over the ordinary high water level. And if, we were encouraged to not permit that, well, what that would mean is that, in my opinion, what that would mean is the city just couldn't have as long of a fence, and that might exacerbate, some of the complaints where people think that the dogs are swimming, over into the beach area and this kind of thing. So, I wonder about that. But I think that the city needs to, most of the complaints are city complaints. And so I think they need to do some work on their end, which it sounds like they're doing. And just like the LUC tabled this, we'll just take it up at a future meeting. But what does everybody else think? Or does anybody else want to?
No, I think our only concern is the fence. And the fence runs between two parcels that are both owned by the city, correct?
Yeah, that's
so there's not a matter of arbitrating between neighbors because they're the same entity. So it's really up to the city, all these kind of issues. So we're only looking at the fence and the objective, very often when adjacent homeowners, have disagreements, then we have to arbitrate it. But really, they're the same entity, and it's really up to the city. And the city has requested this, and we have to look at it fairly narrowly on the merits of a fence and what they're trying to do with it. And we have discussed this before. I thought we did approve a variance, right?
Well, we approved the fence for 2024.
It was for a structure in the lake. Yeah. So.
Chris?
Yeah, and it's not just the fence, but it's also the concern for pollutants in the lake, and you read the feedback of all of it. And it seems like the two parties in both camps just kind of are talking past each other, where I do think they have to solve something, because it doesn't seem like, because when we asked Paul when he came with a permit to say we're going to put the fence in, I've specifically asked, I go, is this going to cause more disturbance, or is there problems down at the lake? And after that meeting and after it was published in the White Bear Press, I got nothing but phone calls like, there is problems and there's these concerns. And I would say the only thing I gave back, which we've been saying, is if you have a concern about some problem with the lake, you should voice it to, we give it to Sherry, that's what we do, and we should look at it. So I do think whether we think the city is right or the residents are right, if folks can prove it, like Mike was saying, I think that's one thing that has to happen. Like these data points everybody comes up with, I could argue either side, the city's wrong or these people are wrong, where I do think some more data has to be collected to make sure that both parties are listened, because it's not just about the fence, it's more when you read through the list. You're watching the state of Minnesota, there's only like 5 dog parks that are documented that they do this. There's problems with these dog parks. I'm not a big fan of, I'm not going to say we need to do the leash laws and all the other stuff, but when you read this feedback, it doesn't seem like the parties are listening to each other. Where it's like if we're getting complaints about concerns for the water quality, I do think we have to look at it.
Susie?
Yeah, I'm looking at the dog beach, and I read all the letters from the residents and the people in the area. And as a parent, my child, when they were little, and they're no longer little, got Giardia just from the lake as it was. There was no dog beach. I think we're adding a pollutant that would not be good for anyone's health, children in particular, because children get very sick from it. And I'm also concerned It sounded like at first it was like 1 or 2 dogs, maybe 10 dogs, maybe 20 dogs. The saturation of dogs seems to be increasing exponentially, and I'd be concerned about that as well, because that's also going to increase the bacteria that's being put into the lake. Also, in Birchwood, we have a beach where we have disallowed dogs down on the beach because they started fighting. They weren't on leashes, people weren't picking up the fecal matter. And that became a real concern. There were small children around. Smaller area, but same concerns. I really think we owe it to the residents and everyone who is using that lake, our lake, to make sure that there aren't any additional pollutants in our water. I mean, our water quality is really good, but we don't want it to go downhill either.
Yeah, and I'd just say, based on the data we have, and again, this is all the data we have, the E. coli numbers are much better at the dog beach than they are at Memorial Beach.
But if that saturation continues and there's more dogs and more dogs, you're going to have an increase in the E. coli too.
Yeah, so your point is that we should monitor the E. coli, and if it ever gets to be a problem, then we should take some action?
No, my point is that we should eliminate the bacteria additionally put into the water and find another public spot that a dog park could be that would not be on the lake, that would not contribute to any illness of anyone.
So then would we not allow any dogs on the lake?
I think you're talking about a public property that has residential homes around it, and I think those residential homes deserve not to have all that commotion around them, but also not to have that additional pollutant in their area. And eventually it all circulates all over the lake, so it's not like it's staying in that spot.
Okay.
I think if you're talking about a dog on a private residence, that's their ADUA, that's their business. But I think you're inviting hundreds of dogs to be on the park, on the lake, contributing to bacteria.
Okay.
Well, it's not just E. coli.
No.
The problem you have with dog feces is fecal cuneiform. And I don't know if that's measured. But I think in any case, it doesn't have anything to do with the fence. It's really the city has to, deal with it.
Well, and I think the board could certainly ask the city to supplement their sampling, if we have, definite concerns. I mean, E. coli, that comes from, a lot of different sources, not just dogs at the dog beach. Giardia, same thing. So, it's kind of, so I think we could request the city to, increase their sampling.
I think it would be interesting to understand how they're sampling it. Like, is it a professional service, or is it some guy with a stick from Menards that he's sticking in the water and see? I don't know. Like, I don't know how they're coming out. It would be interesting to find out what that is too.
Yeah.
And when they sample and how are they doing it. But like here, if the people come up with proof on it too, like this is where, like, even if it's a small sample, is that feces causing it? Nobody knows, right? That's the hard part, where we were talking even with Connor. Like, let's say if Connor's gas tank was leaking at Tally's, that thing would be out in 2 days, right?
Yeah.
So it's like any kind of this stuff, it just kind of makes me feel like something's got to be looked at a little bit.
Yep.
When I think we also open ourselves up to a certain amount of liability with kids in the water, dogs in the water. At some point, some child might get attacked by a dog. Certainly is a concern as well that,
Well, there's a
we're
beach
allowing
there.
that.
Yeah.
Well, we would be allowing a fence.
I realize that, but I'm taking a deeper look into it.
Yeah, and I guess that, I'll say I'm kind of a rational guy, and so when I hear things like, the dogs are barking all day, every day, I think about that and I think, oh, really? But maybe, but I wonder, and then so I think that more data would be good. And we can see when they're sampling. They're sampling the same time at the dog beach as they are at Memorial Beach, and so same day, and so those are probably comparable. But anyway, Mike.
You bring up an interesting question about where they might take the water samples or how, and it would be interesting to know where they take it, when they take it. you know, if it's in use at the time they're taking it. And then it would be nice to take a sample from the swimming area and compare the two and see if there is a difference.
The 7th Street swimming area next to it, you're saying, or what?
Yeah, on one side of the fence and then on the other. And if there is a difference, it would really kind of prove that there is more pollution on the Dockside Park.
And
However,
actually,
if it's the other way around, then, you know, who knows?
yeah, and actually, you know, their data
More
point,
information.
their data point is Dog Beach, 7th Street swim area. So that's one area that they're sampling.
Yeah.
So they may not be differentiating between the dog side and the swim side. But we could certainly ask the city for more clarification on how they sample and where specifically they sample. Sherry, would you ask them about that?
Our concern is water quality.
Yep. Yeah, and so, you know, when we go down that path, it looks like Memorial Beach is, you know, quite a bit higher, generally speaking. So, you know, what would we do about that? I mean, if the concern is water quality,
Depends on where they take it, too.
no?
I mean, who is responsible for closing of the beaches? Like I said, Memorial closed briefly. I'm just curious, like, how often are we doing all the beaches around White Bear Lake and testing?
Yeah.
An isolated incident, or?
I think that'd be another thing to get information from the city, because it would be nice for us to be familiar with all the data that's being collected on the lake. So I think that's a good idea. And they have the dates in here. It looks like, I don't know, maybe every week or 10 days they're sampling through the summer. Okay, any further discussion on this item? Chris?
So just next steps. We asked the city for some clarity or more data. And then the second, can we take a look at our ordinances from just a glance of, like, let's say hypothetically we agree, yep, somebody proves that contamination is caused by this dog park. Does our ordinance cover that? You know, in the sense of, like, just assume that's the case. Does ordinance 14 for when it comes to, like, waste and sewage and some of those things, does that apply here? It smells like it, but I would want, I didn't mean to say that.
Yeah, so, you know, let's do this. Let the executive committee, we'll take a look at that and just see if anything sticks out.
Perfect. Okay.
Alan?
Brian, if I remember or Mr. Chair, if I remember the conversation correctly, I think there was some discussion about perhaps offering a liaison from this body to the city to basically have a nose in the tent on the discussion. Was that about right, Chris?
I'm learning, right? I like Brian's approach. I think we ask them for more data. They'll understand that why we're asking, right? And maybe some more questions come out of that. But then let's get our house in order, understand our ordinances. If the executive committee can do that and we get more data from them, then let's take a peek in January and see what they say.
Just something that came up. during
Yeah,
the
and I
LUC.
appreciate that. And I think that Sherry has been doing a nice job of requesting and basically coordinating with the city on this item. And so I think that we should keep doing that as well. And if it does make sense in the future for us to designate someone to go sit in on meetings and that kind of thing, then maybe we can cross that bridge after we, like Chris said, get our things together. Scott?
These are all interesting things to follow up on. My guess is that if you ask this question, you'll get a bunch of stuff from the Department of Public Health, which tests all the beaches in the state for this kind of thing. And E. coli is apparently a subgroup of the cuneiform viruses, so it would probably be tested, and you'll probably get the answer to that. But I think we need to be careful because we've been asked to permit a fence. And if people aren't happy with what the city's saying or what the Park Advisory Commission of the city of White Bear Lake is saying, we don't want to provide a bypass to use us as a hammer to get what they want. I mean, they may be totally legitimate, but we're talking about a fence here. And we can't just hold the fence off forever, asking this, that, and the other thing, and to try to placate people who are upset at the city.
Yeah.
So I-
No, but
Yep.
I do think if we have some of these concerns that we talked about, I think December and January is a perfect time to figure some of this out, and then we can come back in Jan and look
Yeah.
at it.
Brian, would the DNR have any input into this?
As far as data available, or?
Data available, the use of the water for a dog park, is that something that the DNR permits? I mean, it's public property, but would they have to permit that, as they have to permit the marinas and everything else on the lake?
You know, I doubt that. And again, you know, I think it goes to, you know, a homeowner having 2 or 3 dogs, and you really can't stop that.
No,
It
but
seems.
that's private property. This is public property where the DNR would have some input.
Alan, any thoughts on that?
Pardon me, I don't think there's any DNR regs about that. You know, this is not a marina, this is not something that would require a water appropriation permit, as they call it. And so I would think from a public health standpoint, it'd be more MPCA, something like that. So
Okay.
DNR is going to monitor fishing and hunting and boating and other recreation, things you do on the lake. So I'd call this more of a littoral use. Basically, it's emanating from the shore, in the same way that there's nothing illegal about sending your retriever off the back of your pontoon to fetch a ball, right? It's just not an area I don't think they get into.
Okay.
Okay, good for that? All right, Chris, back to you.
Next one on the list, VFW application. Now, this is the application for their existing dock. This is not for the expansion or anything else. It's just to get a permit in place for 2025 for the existing 26 boats and their 4 transient slips, identical to last year. And the LUC reviewed that and approved it, so I'd like to make a motion to approve the VFW post dock formation for 2025.
Second. So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Meredith?
So we do on our permit have late fees on there, and I noticed that a couple of the permits were turned in late. Are we going to enforce late fees this year on those 2 permits that were turned in late?
Here's what if it was done on purpose, I would be like, yes, absolutely. The problem with some of these is we've been going back and forth with some of these, whether it's waiting for the DNR, like Mike from Docks of White Bear. We went back and forth the DNR permit where we had it, we didn't have it. It was so close, and then it was late. The VFW kind of was in this limbo where they were trying to like get their permit in, but they were hoping, I think, for the revision and environmental study. So in my head, I'm like, with all the confusion and us trying to coordinate, myself and Sherry, the best we can, I would waive it on the, for that, because I don't think there was any ill intention on having them try to miss it on purpose. It was like trying to get all the right data and try to get the right permit in. Where even in our last meeting for the VFW, Brian and I talked, we were like, well, what guidance should we give them? Like, what permit should they do if this stuff is in limbo? And we're like, well, let's get at least 1 permit in. And then when you talk to some of these guys, they're characters, right? So there's a lot of these people, this is like the VFW is not their job, right? It's like their volunteer thing. So I'm willing to give them a break on it, but like once we get these things dialed in and you have your DNR permit, I think and everything's solid and your permit's there, then we enforce it. That's my 2 cents. But I'm open to discussions on it for sure.
I just want to make sure we're following our own rules.
Yeah.
Okay, any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes.
And next one on this list, Docks of White Bear. It's revised from last year. It's the same number of boats. It's 250. It was, if you look at the diagram, it's just revised to be able to fit all the docks into the ADUA based on learnings from last year. Like, I think they had all good intentions on how the dock should be, and we did have what do we call it? Not an amendum to extend the docks, or a variance to extend the docks. So what Docks of White Bear was trying to do in this diagram was just to get the right format to fit it in the ADUA for the 250. I don't think that was very hard to do when we pushed things out and things were pinched or whatever. This is This is probably from the learnings from last year to give us a really good diagram where end of the docks are, if you have a boat there, it's within the 300, and it fits the 250 in, and that's the only revision. So the boats are the same. There's just a few little tweaks where you'll see where your boat club is there on the shore. The dock extends and angles a little bit on the farthest to the Lions Park, but everything adheres to the ADUI line on the Lions Park. I know the city and them are in alignment there, so the revision is really to fit in this diagram based on a lot of the learnings from last year to make sure the 250 fit in the ADUA.
Susie?
I thought there was a question last year that we were going to decrease the number. Last year was supposed to be an anomaly. They could have 250, but the next year, being 225, that we were going to decrease the number they were allowed.
I think that was a discussion we had maybe 2 years ago. But last year, we made the decision, the board made the decision to allow 250. And I don't remember any caveats associated with that.
Okay.
So with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve docks of White Bear Lake for 2025.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion?
So I just wanted to say thank you for adding transient slips. People are requesting those. Are you going to allow overnight parking in your transient slips?
The transient slips, the two transient slips we have, no, we're not going to allow overnight, so they're just there to tie up for the day. Yeah, my plan is if we apply for a variance to go out to 350, the ones closer to shore that are shallower will be able to open up more transients, should you approve.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions? Yeah.
The transient slips are the P1 and the P2?
Yeah.
That P1 and P2, correct, okay. Nearest Admiralties on dock 1.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes.
The last one, your boat club, it's the commercial sales permit, same as last year. So LUC reviewed and approved, so I'd like to make a motion to approve your boat club commercial sale permit for 2025.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That passes.
Should have done your boat club first.
Okay, we're moving on to the Lake Education Committee. Scott?
Yeah, we're formulating the final input for the Laker, which is due at the end of the month. Will be published around the end of the year. Our next Laker input is like after Memorial Day. It'd be quite a ways. So the next event that we're concerned about is the lake cleanup. If you can think of that, far out, would be at March 8th or 9th. So that's all I've got. Meredith, you have any social media updates?
So on our social media this month, I'm going to get to aeration. I didn't get to that last month. I'm going to post something about winter salt use again, then post the Laker when it comes out, maybe the ice in if it goes in before our January meeting, some things on winter ice rules, and public notification of our public hearing for the water appropriation ordinance change. And I'm happy to post anything anyone wants. Just email me or call me.
One thing I'd bring up is, and I don't know when it would be appropriate, but people renting boats without the proper whatever.
The Coast Guard sticker?
Yeah.
Okay.
But then also, would they need a commercial? Commercial permit? Yeah, commercial permit.
Okay.
And Alan, so we want to make sure we get that right. And Alan, do you have any, or would you want to provide any guidance on that messaging?
Okay.
Probably take it offline.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't post that over the winter.
Yep.
Probably be more like a April ice out post.
Just have to be careful about messaging. 'cause
Okay.
People are going to be following it.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, any questions for Scott or Meredith? Moving on. Treasurer's report, Mike?
We have two. We have one for November. These are things that will get paid tonight. And there is the Blue Water Science, the survey, and all the work that Steve did for Eurasian water milfoil. So I would like to make a motion to approve debit card purchase 2024-20 and checks number 4991 through 4996.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to approve the November Treasurer's report. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Okay, the next is
Passes.
December, and this is a proposed report, treasurer's report, because there will be things added to it, like Chris Weiberg for taking the buoys out and things like that. But at least we need to get an okay so we can take care of these before the year end. One of the more notable things on there is a up-to-date or for work completed Blue Water Science again for the lake use study of $27,200. And going to ask, Sherry, do you know that that is a partial?
Oh, I'm sorry, I was just typing.
That's just a partial bill from McComas?
Yes, because it's not, the whole study isn't complete yet.
Okay. Be nice to get it all in this year, but who knows?
Well,
We don't know.
what is your thought on that? Because he isn't done yet.
I don't think we should pay an invoice for work that hasn't been completed yet, personally.
Ahead, yeah, okay. I agree. So this is a proposed budget, or proposed treasurer's report, and this will allow us to pay what you see in front of you, plus the other thing, a few other incidentals to keep the doors and the lights on, keep the doors open and the lights on. So for beginning, I would like to ask for approval of debit card purchase 2024-21 and -22, and checks 4997 through 5003.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? And I'll just start. So, Mike, the $14,000 for Ramsey County, did they send us an invoice for that?
Oh, I requested an invoice, and so it's at the finance department. If I don't get it by next week, I'm going to email again to see if they could send it to us. But they are aware that we need it.
And the $14,000 is a good number?
I don't know that.
That's what was budgeted, so that's proposed. That would be the most that we would, and you kind of indicated it might even be less.
Yeah, and just for the good of the order, on that subject, I do have a report basically based on what they did.
Yeah.
And one of the little data points is that the total grant was $14,000 because that's what our contract reads. And according to Mike, that's Sergeant Servatka, the money spent out of that grant was only $97.50 for want of some. I guess he had one of his part-timers go active military, and so that obviously cost us a little bit of time on the lake. But I mean, it also gives us something of a credit. So I would say just approve that, because it'll be that or less based on this if we use what's left as a credit against that account.
Okay.
What we've done is we have a check assigned to it now.
Yeah.
A check
right.
number assigned to it that we will
Just not a
use,
solid number,
and then we'll
so.
have the correct total in January,
Yep.
hopefully, when we approve the final December report.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? And just for clarification, we don't meet in December. We have bills that need to be paid in December. So we pre-approve December treasurer's report, and we will approve the final December treasurer's report at our January meeting. Okay, so all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes. Any questions for Mike? Okay, thank you, Mike. Board council report, Alan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As alluded to, hot off the press from Ramsey County, but before I get to that, a bit of housekeeping for Sherry. If we're deferring voting on the fence on our structure for the city, we should send them an extension letter telling them a decision will not be made until January, just so we're covered under the 60-day rule that, you know, if it goes by, it's just approved. So we have to ask for that period of extension. As far as
Alan, question on that. If there were others that we didn't, or that we tabled, should we do the same thing?
I thought we were just waiting on numbers and other
tabled
data
Yacht
points.
Club.
Tabled Yacht Club, tabled the City Marina.
Isn't a conditional approval already based on some housekeeping, then yeah, they should get that too.
So I always give them a letter that says it's tabled until whatever happens. Is that not enough, or do I need to say I'm giving you
We'll do it offline.
Okay.
I'll give you the language for it. It's just a clause in the law that says if we need more time to consider an application, we can just take it, but we do have to tell people that we're taking it. So, anything else on that? All right. Mike did send us, I don't know why it took us until now to get this, but he couldn't be here tonight, so I'm going to kind of hit the highlights of what the patrol actually gave you this year.
Alan, could you get closer to your mic for me, please, because my hearing is not great.
I say Mike was going to be here but could not to present the report, so you get it from me. A total of 202 patrol hours were actually logged by Ramsey County on White Bear Lake, and that's under the grant. So that's under the monies that you guys spend. That's in addition to the folks that they would put out here regularly. And again, I think I mentioned that $14,000 was granted and $97.50 was spent. They performed 89 boat safety checks over that, basically the boating season. Personal, basically checks of safety gear were 40. They assisted 16 boaters that actually needed some form of help, whether that means distress or some such thing. They didn't go into great detail. They wrote 3 citations for illegal conduct, 23 written warnings for conduct, and 3 verbal warnings, and they ended up towing 7 watercraft over the course of the summer. So I'm assuming that out of those 16 assists, 7 of them resulted in a tow. And so those are the highlights from our commander of the Water Patrol.
Okay.
So
I just have is that the formal report that we get, or is that just a conversation you had with him?
this is the formal report that I will be sending to Sherry as part of the permanent record, but I didn't get this until right before the meeting, so.
Sounds good.
It is coming your way. And we can put that, there's nothing private on there, so if we want to put it on any sort of media or on the website, we can do that. And we'll just put it as part of the official meeting minutes, so it'll show up in the packet next month. And I would stand for questions.
Questions for Alan?
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Announcements?
Oh, just to let you know, at the back of your packet, I have the dates for the 2025 board meetings and LUC meetings, so just wanted to remind you about that, and our next meeting won't be until January 21st, 2025.
Okay, thank you, Sherry. And I have one announcement. I would like to encourage all of us to meet with our member communities. And that includes us. And I think that, you know, in January, Sherry will have a summary of kind of the board's activities over the past year. And so I think that after we receive that, that's a nice tool for us to have in front of us when we go meet with our member communities. And so I'm just putting it on your radar that I'd like to encourage all of us to do that. Yep. Okay, and then we're on to item 12, adjournment. Would anybody like to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes. Thank you, everybody.